announcer Thomas Triber. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the time has arrived for Inside Boxing Weekly. So here are your hosts, Mike Goodpaster, John Einreinhofer, and Jeremiah Preisser on the Grueling Truth Sports Network.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Inside Boxing Weekly on the GruelingTruth.net. We are brought to you by Replenishing Care. They have a new CBD oil out. If you want to find out some information about that, you can go to GruelingTruth.net, click on the Replenishing Care logo. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, who with me nailed the Usyk pick this week, Jeremiah Preisser.
Yes, I'm taking a bow. Yes, I did get that one right, but not quite so one-sided that I thought, but I'm happy to be here, happy to talk boxing with you guys. Let's get it going.
I would like to say, when we wrote our article, I did say it would be a wide decision, so I did think that Garcia would win a round or two, but all right, so yeah, the elephant in the room is only one of us was wrong on this prediction. Help us welcome to the show, that man, John Einreinhofer. How you doing, John?
Got to be wrong once in a while, but I was wrong on this one. But I think actually in my post-mortem,
it doesn't matter. Wait, save it till we talk
about that. I think I overrated Gassiev a bit.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about this last week's fights, and then we'll go to that. We're going to start off with Jaime Munguia. Fought Liam Smith, and actually what was an entertaining fight. I thought Smith won the first 2 or 3 rounds. Don't think he did much after that. But this is my take on this, Jeremiah. I never was completely sold on Munguia like a lot of people. I'm still not, because I think, when you get hit with every punch that's thrown at you, that usually causes a problem. But the thing I took away from this fight is that Liam Smith's a tough guy, at least.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to give him credit for, showing a warrior spirit. I mean, this was a fight that a lot of people thought was going to be a blowout. All of us thought it was going to be a one-sided fight. I mean, just about everybody thought so. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Liam Smith and his brothers, well, not Liam Smith, but his brothers, who also boxed, thought, hey, maybe this isn't for you. But Liam Smith, he went out there and gave it all that he could. I mean, we were all surprised. I mean, the way the HBO commentating team was starting the show off. They're comparing him to a Mike Tyson, and but funny enough, as time went on, they started comparing more to Gotti and stuff like that. But I give Liam Smith all sorts of credit, because he could have just laid down and collected his paycheck and took a plane back across the ocean to the UK and been just fine. But no, he was competitive. I mean, he was counterpunching pretty well. He was landing a lot of lead shots. That was what I found most concerning for Munguia, was that Liam Smith was landing a lot of jabs, a lot of right hands. When he decided to move his head, he made Munguia miss quite a bit. But when he put the earmuffs on, that's when he really got himself in trouble. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things, and you saw it on Twitter afterwards. A lot of boxing writers were, they spoke the truth. They were like, okay, well, you got to pump the brakes on this guy. He's young, he's got a lot of time to develop. My thing, however, is that I don't think Munguia is the power puncher that he was being made out to be initially. His lack of defense is very concerning, frankly. I mean, a guy, when people are like, hey, he has time to develop, that's all good and well. I mean, he is 21 years old, and there is room for improvement. But what I've learned from my years of watching boxing is that guys with that bad a defense do not improve that much. And especially if you have a good chin like Munguia seems to have. I mean, Liam Smith isn't the banger Golovkin is, or, guys like Lemieux are, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't really know how good his chin is, but if he does have a chin, a lot of those guys develop this sort of confidence, and they can fall back on that. What they think is they'll just eventually overwhelm you, and I just don't think that bodes well for Munguia's future. I don't think he's ever going to be able to compete with guys like Jarrett Hurd or some of the biggest guys at middleweight, the Charlo brothers, Golovkin, Saul Alvarez. I just don't see that happening. I did want to make one other note as well, is that with Munguia, I saw Roy Jones made a point during the fight that it would have been bad had Munguia been paired with Golovkin, and obviously that was true. I mean, Munguia was just far too hittable for a guy like Golovkin. I mean, Golovkin would have jabbed his head off. But Roy Jones made the distinction between the talent gap between Golovkin and Munguia, and then Lampley chimed in talking about the weight disparity as if that's as if that's a real thing. I mean, if you look at Munguia's weight going
bigger than Golovkin.
Absolutely he is. He in fact, he weighed 176 the night of the fight. That is bigger than Golovkin has ever weighed. I think the biggest Golovkin has ever weighed going into the fight is 172, 173, and I think that was against Rubio, who missed weight. So I think he was trying to make up for it a little bit there. But he's also bigger than Canelo Alvarez ever was at 154, at least from what we know. You know, he could have been bigger against Cotto. So I just don't I didn't understand that, where they're like, oh, well, you know, he fights in a division lower. We all know that 154, 160, the point is moot, okay? It doesn't really matter the difference between a 154 and 160. You know, the size difference is negligible. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, let's face it anymore. A guy that's a 160-pounder is fighting at welterweight.
Exactly. I mean, you know, and there are all sorts of rumors about how big Spence is and Crawford is, just their walk-around weight, and, you know, Charlo, et cetera, et cetera. Munguia is bigger than Golovkin. Lampley made a stupid point, but then again, he's been struggling a bit on the mic for years now.
Yeah. John, what was your take on Munguia? Do you kind of think we jumped a little bit, or people jumped a little too soon on the bandwagon there off of the Saddam Ali fight?
No, I don't think that, but I think that Munguia was not threatened by Smith, so he was definitely sloppy. My main concern with him was that he was inaccurate. He was swinging wild. He was inaccurate. Just anxious to get Smith out of there. You know, I give Smith credit for hanging in there, not folding, but he was never really a threat to win the fight. You know, he's not a puncher, and Munguia knows he can't punch. So he wasn't concerned about what was coming back at him. And, you know, he was just swinging wild. Just in terms of, I didn't like his inaccuracy. I don't like to see that. I don't think it's a question of his power. You know, he still dropped Smith. But he was just wildly inaccurate. He was swinging wild, doing, you know, really crude type things that he shouldn't be doing. But the one thing I did like about the performance, and even though certainly Liam Smith isn't, you know, 1/10 the boxer that Usyk is, I think there was something you could point out in the two fights that day that Munguia showed that a guy like Gassiev did not show, which was that Munguia was still getting after Smith, trying to take his head off. Even if he was swinging wildly, he was coming at him, kept coming at him, even if he was missing. And then Smith ended up being out of the fight for the last 9 rounds of the fight. That is because of, you know, Munguia's determination, his willpower, his heart, his aggressiveness, you know, the ferocity of trying to take a guy out. But his accuracy was bad. Certainly against a better fighter than Smith, he's not going to be able to get away with that. You know, if he tries to, I would concur that certainly he is going to have some trouble. I don't think he will. And I think if you look at that performance too, you got to wonder a little bit from the outside, what's the purpose of bringing, you know, Robert Alcazar in? I mean, Munguia was doing fine with his father. Maybe he's not a top trainer. Maybe they agreed to bring somebody in, but you know, I've seen Munguia, you know, fight a few times, and you know, seen him look good, certainly better than he did Saturday night. And I'm not sure there was a need for a change there. So maybe that's something that they ought to think about a bit, because you know, when you got too many voices in the corner, and then he's trying to do too many different things, sometimes it just doesn't come out right. So. He's only 21 years old, though, so I don't see any reason to panic here.
All right, so that brings us to Usyk, Gassiev, and John, since you were starting to give the opinion early, I'll let you go ahead, because I know you and Jeremiah disagree on this, but what was your take on Usyk's performance in the win over Gassiev?
I wasn't didn't find the fight particularly impressive at all. Usyk, to me, he fights a lot like we criticize a lot of the guys out of the Cuban school of. He's a southpaw. He's just pity-patting there. You can see he came up during the time when they were counting punches in the amateurs, because he's still fighting like that as a professional when his opposition is a little bit better. And Gassiev was just a disappointment. In hindsight now, in some of his other performances, you see that he relies on his power. I think his power's for real. I think if he moves up to heavyweight, he even will be able to bring his power with him. But the problem is, the guy looks too much just for the power shot. He doesn't want to work hard enough in there. And Mike, this is something, frankly, we've discussed this type of thing, and maybe you won't, but I think you should relate to. Could you see, Evander Holyfield and Dwight Muhammad Cowie, touching gloves all the time, every couple of rounds, and Usyk, I thought he was John Ruiz in there. Every time he got hit with a clean body shot and the ref called it low when he shouldn't have, Usyk was complaining, looking to the referee. And, he certainly won the fight, but I just wasn't particularly impressed by the performance of either guy.
We went through this with the Wilder comparison to a poor Larry Holmes. Don't do it again. Things are different now than what they were then. That's all I'm going to say. That's why we see very few great fighters anymore. I thought with Usyk, I don't think it was an amateurish performance. What I thought was this. I thought that he is one of the most talented boxers in the world, and I still do. The difference between today and 1978 is Sugar Ray Leonard will outbox you for 8 or 9 rounds, but will still try to knock you out in the end to impress people, because that's what he wants to do. I question with Usyk that a little bit. I think that he had to fight one. He was happy with that. He let it go. I don't think it was amateurish, because I think he hit him with some pretty solid jabs. And I think Usyk's a very talented guy. I think this plays well if he goes to the heavyweight division, because most of those guys are just 1-2 like Gassiev and do nothing else. But my disappointment with him is my same disappointment that I had with Floyd Mayweather when he fought. Just go try to end the fight when you know you're a lot better than a guy. I know people will say, well, you're taking an unnecessary risk there. But I saw Gassiev caught him a couple times. Didn't even look like he hurt him at all. I don't know why. If you want to be great, you got to go out and you got to dominate people. And it was, when people bring up Sugar Ray Leonard to Floyd Mayweather, that's what I go back to. I don't remember too many fights where Sugar Ray Leonard just let fights go to a decision because he had a comfortable win. It's kind of like comparing Trinidad and De La Hoya to Leonard and Hearns, if you know what I mean. Trinidad and De La Hoya, that fight was supposed to be on the same level, but when it came down to it, neither one of those guys were willing to risk it. Leonard and Hearns were.
Well, I think Trinidad was willing to risk it, and that's why I think he pulled the fight out in the end. I just think that he was having some troubles there, but the will was there. But there is something. Unfortunately, you do see. That is the point, though. I saw one British fan, an old timer who had been involved in some training and stuff, and he saw it the same way that I did, and it's just and then you have a need theoretically for a cruiserweight division, but when I see stuff like this, and even though I'd be the first to agree that the heavyweight division overall is weak, that if you are back at 8 divisions, this is like Usyk and Gassiev. It's like maybe a bottom half of the top 10 of the heavyweight matchups, and Usyk wins the fight. And
really,
and to me,
you think they're
that would be like
half of a top 10 right now in the heavyweight division? Gassiev I could see, because I don't even think he'd be top 10. But Usyk,
he didn't look like he's even top 10 the way he performed. But
the way he performed. Wait a second now, because you're always talking about Deontay Wilder and how good you think he is, and Deontay Wilder doesn't have near the skill Usyk has. And I think if Usyk fights Wilder, Usyk has a legitimate chance, because I don't know if Wilder can ever hit him because he's the one that fights with the amateur style.
Well, not amateurish. Usyk fights amateurish, Mike. He pity pats. He punches like you're scoring punches with the counters that they used to push when that was the way the amateurs did it for a long time when they abandoned it because they finally realized how ridiculous it was. He does fight like that. He throws a lot of pity pat punches. He's just going for volume, and he just keeps moving his hands like that. Fine, but you see a lot of the Cuban guys doing the same type of thing. We've criticized them. It's a similar type of a style, that kind of amateur style. You're talking Wilder amateurish in terms of being more unschooled, like we would refer to back in the old days. Sometimes when the amateur rules were different then, and if somebody would be swinging wild, because back then in the amateurs they would still look to knock people out. But Wilder, he weighed in at 208 against Ortiz.
214.
So no, not against Ortiz. I think it was 208. So, well, maybe it was 214.
Yeah, I don't think it was that low.
Maybe it was 214. So okay, so Usyk weighs 198 and a half, and Wilder's at 214. I mean, Wilder's I think faster at heavyweight than people think, but he had troubles with the southpaw and Ortiz, so there's some troubles there. And hey, Usyk wants to prove it. I'm fine with that. Fighting Tony Bellew is not going to prove it. So that wasn't exactly inspiring, calling out Tony Bellew after the fight.
I think it was because you get paid to do that, and right now, if Wilder and Joshua's going to fight, who's he going to make money against? He's got to go with Tyson Fury, who's nowhere near going to step in the ring with Usyk right now. Tony Bellew's a guy that if he steps in the ring with him, Usyk's going to knock him out. He's not going to have a problem with him, I don't think. I think he will knock out Bellew because Bellew's going to do something stupid and get cracked, and that'll be it. But I think I also don't think you can just throw him in. Most heavyweights that have moved up to heavyweight outside of the Michael Spinks usually take a fight or two to get their feet wet, If Vander Holyfield started off with an old Pinklon Thomas and an old Quick Tillis before he moved up and fought anybody, so
right.
I don't.
Now look at guys like Roy Jones and James Toney. I mean,
look
take
at
off
him.
The training
What did
wheels.
Roy Jones do? He fought freaking John Ruiz.
Well, Ruiz was a top 10 heavyweight in his first fight. So
I refuse to ever believe John Ruiz is a top 10 heavyweight. He was
a top 10 heavyweight.
He was shit.
He was
you
a top
just said
10 heavyweight.
Yourself he was shit. You compared him to him and the way he grabbed him.
Mike, he was a top 10 heavyweight.
No, Roy Jones.
Mike, he was a top 10 heavyweight when Roy Jones beat him in his first fight. Yeah. You're wrong, so just say you're wrong.
I'm wrong. You're the one that thinks John Ruiz is a big deal. I mean, beating John
When did
Ruiz,
I say it was a big deal? I just said Roy Jones came right and beat a top 10 heavyweight.
Okay. Well, there was a lot of guys that were top 10 heavyweights then and now that are jokes. And John Ruiz was that. I mean, all the guy did was grab. He gets knocked out in 15 seconds in one fight. Roy Jones, if he wanted to be heavyweight champion, should have fought John Ruiz and then fought Lennox Lewis. John Ruiz was not a heavyweight champion. They may have said he was, but he wasn't. We all know Lennox Lewis was the heavyweight champion. So, I mean, fighting John Ruiz and Tony Bellew, is that big of a difference?
Mike, you're defending the guy for striving for his greatness for calling out Tony Bellew. Come on. I mean, you know better than that.
I am?
You know better than that.
I am.
Sure.
All right, so who do you want him to call out?
Say, give me Joshua or Wilder.
But they're not going to give him Joshua or Wilder. So it's stupid to call out somebody you're not going to get. I mean, what do you want him to do? I guess he could call out Carlos Takam or something. But I'm sorry. You get paid with Tony Bellew.
He's got to show the message that if he wants to be called great, he wants to show that he's great. He should want the best in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, but let me intervene. I mean, who's doubting that Usyk would want those guys? I mean, it's not a matter of doubting that he would want them. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that he would fight either one of them. It's a matter of timing. I mean, with Joshua and Wilder, both with scheduled bouts, no doubt that they're planning on, probably making this happen early next year in the summer or something. I mean, the timeline doesn't fit for Usyk right now. So calling guys out, again, who he's not going to get, I don't really think, where do you go with that? I mean, okay, fighting Bellew, I think Bellew is actually rated in the top 10. I mean, yeah, I don't love it, but he could get paid, beat a guy who's on the fringe of the top 10 at least in the heavyweight division, and he can play the waiting game, because that's what's going to happen. And not only that, he might have to wait a lot longer, because if Tyson Fury continues his gradual development, I wouldn't be surprised if Joshua and Wilder fought, and then Tyson Fury gets that fight, later that year, later next year, So if that's potentially the timeline, Usyk's got to fill the void with something. I mean, he can't sit on his hands, and again, I mean, he's got to do something with it. And you look at the potential fights out there. Who's he really got? I mean, if Fury, Povetkin's taken, Brazil's taken, Joshua's taken, Wilder's taken, and they probably will be taken, who's he going to fill the void with? Ruiz, or I don't know what promotion to promotion deal makes sense, but I honestly don't see why it's a big deal. I don't see that.
The guy should want to be heavyweight champ. He should want to be heavyweight champion of the world, not fighting Tony Bellew, who shouldn't be in any legitimate heavyweight top 10. Just coming off 2 consecutive fights with David Hay.
But you can be heavyweight champion by beating Berman Stavern and beating an old Luis Ortiz, and you get respect for that. But if you're at cruiserweight and you beat 2 or 3 to top 4 or 5 guys, then that means you wouldn't want to beat a heavyweight champion of the world. Come on, John.
I don't consider. When have I ever said that I considered Wilder the heavyweight champion of the world? I've never said it.
Okay.
The real heavyweight championship of the world is vacant.
Okay, but so why doesn't Wilder or Joshua want to be heavyweight champion of the world?
Who have I been saying should on this show should be fighting? And I have advocated that there should be no delay. The number 1 and the number 2 heavyweights in the world. Yeah. Wilder and Joshua.
Yeah. But they're not fighting. So we're going to rip Usyk, because we all know that neither one of these guys are going to get near Usyk right now, because the win and loss ratio there is not very good. If you beat him, you just beat a cruiserweight. A guy
and financially, it doesn't make as much sense either. I mean, Usyk's not going to be as big of a sell as Joshua and Wilder fighting, and he's not going to be as big of a sell as Tyson Fury. Again, if Tyson Fury keeps doing what he's doing, I mean, if I'm just repeating myself here, but if Usyk has no option to fight Wilder or Joshua or even Tyson Fury, who's he going to fight?
He's got to try to build himself into those type of fights by calling out for it, putting himself in the mix. Saying I want Tony Bellew is not showing that. Right, but has he made that commitment?
Has he made the commitment to move up to heavyweight yet?
No.
He says he wants Tony Bellew
at cruiserweight or heavyweight,
at cruiserweight,
whatever Bellew wants.
Which is even worse.
No, it isn't,
so
because
Tony Bellew just came off with 2 heavyweight victories.
Right now,
he wants him at cruiserweight.
To me, the way Usyk becomes a greater fighter is not moving to heavyweight. It's getting Andre Ward or Sergey Kovalev to fight him, because they're both worlds better than the guys at heavyweight. I mean, if he beats Andre Ward and becomes the first man to do that, to me, that's a bigger deal than if he beats 2 guys that aren't very good, that are just big.
Why in God's name is Andre Ward going to fight him at cruiserweight? Andre Ward, if he comes back, he's going to come back as a heavyweight and try to become a heavyweight champion.
But once again, are you going to get Joshua or Wilder in the ring with him?
Well, you have to try to. That's the thing. You have to try.
But what I'm saying is, if you're Usyk and you can make money fighting a Kovalev that moves up or something. I mean, right now, John, this is a joke, because we got 2 guys that claim to be heavyweight champions that don't want to fight each other. We could say they do all we want, but if they wanted to, they'd fight. I've saw this through the last 50 years of my life. Back in the day, if two men wanted to fight, it didn't matter who managed them. They made the fight happen by telling their manager or their promoter, I want to fight that guy. We don't have that right now, and I will almost bet you anything, we don't see them fight in April either. I think it's the end of next year.
I think Wilder wants to fight, and Hearn does not want to.
Because Wilder has always shown a propensity to fight the best competition out there. He's never backed down. His first 40 fights, he's beaten some guys that are really good. Both of these guys. If you're going to question a guy, the guy to question would be Wilder, because Joshua has at least fought a Klitschko. He's at least fought a Dillian White. Deontay Wilder, this is the thing. Deontay Wilder's made a living doing what you are saying that Usyk should do, which is to run around, flap his gums, and say he wants a fight, and then he doesn't get that fight. There is no use for Usyk to sit here and scream at the top of his lungs that he wants to fight Joshua and Wilder, because, number one, nobody's going to take him seriously. He's the cruiserweight champion.
Why wouldn't anybody take him?
Because he's not going to get that fight right now, John. Nobody's going to take it seriously, because we know. Why would Joshua or Wilder risk it against Usyk? I'm sorry, you can sit here and say he's an amateur, but all I know is this. He gives great angles. His feet are very good. He's got great balance. He gets in, he gets out without getting hit. Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua have both shown a propensity to get tired. I think Usyk could fight 40 rounds without a problem. I think Usyk has the better trainer. And I just think when you look at this, unless one of these guys just buzzes him and can knock him out, which I don't know if they can or not, because I think Usyk can take a punch. And you may have to hit him more than once. I think that Deontay Wilder would have a hell of a time hitting him. And, he might have to run in and start swinging, and he might get cracked and go down. Because the people that say Usyk can't hit, that's fine. But I'm betting as he moves up, he can. And right now, he's just using his boxing ability to beat up people. And his boxing ability is worlds ahead of Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. It's not even close. Right now, I would give Joshua the best chance of beating Usyk just because physically he's so much bigger than Wilder. And the question is this: if Wilder fights Usyk, does he come in at 214 or does he come in at 230?
He comes in 214. You don't want to give away even more speed than you need to, because he's still.
But then you're giving away the size advantage too.
Well, Wilder's better when he comes in lighter. So he should just keep doing what he's been doing.
Yeah. All right.
And I don't know what fight he's shown a propensity to get tired in, because he's shown knocked out Ortiz late. He didn't have any problem going 12 with Stavern, and the one fight he had to go the distance. So I don't think he's shown any propensity for fatigue.
All right, Jeremiah.
Well, we talked about the styles matchup between Usyk and all these other guys. I think you're right, Mike. There's not enough reward for fighting somebody like that at the moment. Especially when Tyson Fury is building his way up, and the Wilder Joshua fight is just. I think it's just around the corner. It's going to happen because it has to happen. The reason I say so is because who else? Joshua can keep fighting contenders and keep knocking them off and keep getting paid well, but we all know that the fight, that they want, and Joshua commented on this today. He said if Wilder doesn't want the fight early next year, he'll fight Fury because Fury might want it by then. Who knows? I suppose that's possible that Fury accepts the fight early next year, and then we have Wilder, late the same year. I suppose it is possible, but in my opinion, it just seems like it's imminent. I feel as if Eddie Hearn has just been. All the chit chat and whatnot, it's just diversion tactics. It's just a way of getting people to talk about the fight. It's just building it. And that's what I think he wants. And eventually you'll get it. Again, I think it's going to be early next year. But the thing about Usyk is, Deontay Wilder is taller. Right. But the thing about Usyk, even if he moves up, I think he's going to be just fine at heavyweight. He fought at heavyweight in the amateur. Go look at his fight against Joe Joyce. Got him in the World Series box and throwing right hands, and Usyk just kept slipping it and banging him with the left hand. And who would prefer to fight a guy like that in the heavyweight division? Because nobody has that style. I mean, Joseph Parker, he looked like he could give a little left, but does he have the slickness of Usyk? I mean, is he as quick as Usyk? Does he have the pedigree or the defensive radar? Or he doesn't. It might be just too big a risk right now to fight a guy like Usyk, and fine. I mean, if John wants him to, call out the big guys, that's fine. Again, I just think we should acknowledge that it's not going to happen. I mean, there's bigger guys. I just don't think it makes any sense to risk that right now. Yeah.
All right. Real quick, Jeremiah, your phone's starting to cut out a little bit. So we'll go to John on this next one. We got the fights coming up this week. We got Dillian Whyte against Joseph Parker. What's your take on this one, John?
This is one that the odds makers have it just about even. Parker's a slight favorite. As we all know, I think we all three of us pretty much agree on this. We don't really like the way Parker's been fighting. I agree with Jeremiah there. Parker's just turned into a boxer, and that's one guy I think that, Usyk, he would match up still pretty well with Parker, because Parker's going to be too cautious, and Usyk's a better boxer than Parker, and that's not too good of a style matchup for Parker. But Dillian Whyte just might be, because I don't think Dillian Whyte's particularly talented at this level. He's kind of, to me, top 10 by default. And I think that Joseph Parker, he's overly cautious. He's a mediocre boxer, but I'm going to stick with what I've said recently, that I think he's a guy that, because of his cautiousness, and he's just good enough, he's going to be hanging around in the legit heavyweight top 10 probably for the next 10 years, because he's not going to take much punishment. He's going to lose the big fights, but he'll beat some of these guys who's on the fringe, and that's Dillian Whyte. So I think that Parker will probably have enough to decision Whyte. I'm just going to assume he's not going to be aggressive enough to knock him out, but I think Parker will win this. I just don't think Whyte is talented as far as top 10 heavyweights go, and he's going to be the kind of guy that Parker will probably get by for the next 10 years, and the Joshuas and the Wilders of the world and the Usyks will be the guys he'll lose to over the next 10 years, and he'll be hanging around. And I think this will probably be the epitome of the kind of fight he's going to win over the next few years.
All right, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I think Parker's probably going to outbox him. I think White's a bit too sloppy in his technique. I mean, he gets wild. His hooks in particular are not very sharp. His right hand has some slack on it. I'm just not all that impressed. And again, I brought this up before, but he arguably lost to an old Derek Chisora. I'm just not convinced that Whyte really belongs on this level. And to Parker's credit, he's sharp enough and quick enough and has enough of a boxing IQ to at least belong among these guys. And I just think because he's a sharper guy, and because he can move around a bit, he's thinner, his stamina is better. He seems like he can take a punch pretty well. White's really got to rely on the punch here. I just think his technique is too sloppy to land a lot of accurate shots, at least enough to get Parker out of there. So I think Parker's going to take a decision here. I don't think it's going to be a beautiful fight, but he'll win. He'll be effective. He'll use the jab. He'll land accurate straight right hands, and again, he'll win a decision.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see how you can see anything else with these two guys. I think Parker's much more talented than Whyte. Maybe Whyte can overwhelm him, but I don't see it happen. Next up, Luis Ortiz returns to the ring against Razvan Kajuna, I don't know. I know who he is. I've seen him fight a few times. Any chance for an upset here, Jeremiah?
No, an upset, no. I mean, Kajanu was on the ESPN Boxino tournament. He wasn't even good enough to win that. He was knocked off by some fringe level heavyweights. So I don't see anything there. Of course, you never know with the heavyweight division. I've seen crazier things, but Kajanu he's a big guy, but he's pretty straight up and down. He doesn't really get a lot of leverage into his shots, like you would think a big man would. So he's just going to get countered to death, and he's probably going to get knocked out.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jeremiah on this one. The way I look at this, John, is if Razvan could hit a little bit harder. I mean, we saw Ortiz tire badly against Wilder. I mean, he was getting tired by the fourth or fifth round. If I thought Razvan could, punch a little bit, I would give him a shot here. But I think Ortiz probably takes him out in the middle rounds.
Yeah, this is the type of guy Ortiz should be able to, even at this stage, take out. He's a big guy, but he's going to be there to be hit. And like you said, he's not really a big puncher. He got taken out by Donovan Dennis in that ESPN Boxino tournament. He got knocked cold, and Dennis got bludgeoned into submission by Jarrell Miller not long after that. So, it was really when the odds makers really started getting correctly, it turns out, really started getting down on Parker. When Parker fought him, well, actually, no, they were getting down on him before that because they had Huey Fury close, and then Kajanu had to step in for Huey Fury, and he went the distance, and he was on short notice, and Parker couldn't even stop him. So you just saw Parker's stock drop again after that fight, and it's continued to drop to where he's even money with Dillian White, basically. And point is, I just don't think Kajanu's that good. And, if this will really, in a way, show if Ortiz has got anything left, because if he doesn't stop him, that's not going to be a good sign at all for Ortiz going forward. So I guess, in a way, we can maybe learn that from this fight. But, yeah, I would agree that I think Ortiz should have enough left to get him out of there. And I guess it'll be, a showcase for Ortiz is probably, I think it looks like really the PBC people are working with Ortiz now. So you figure this is kind of a PBC showcase for Ortiz here, and he's just got to deliver.
All right, next up, by the main event of the weekend, Robert Easter Jr. will fight Mikey Garcia for the IBF and the WBC World Lightweight Championships. Garcia's last time out, dominated Sergey Lipinets. Before that, Adrian Broner knocked out Zlatishin, and before that, when we look at Easter, not quite as impressive. Easter's a guy I think we could agree, John, that doesn't really use his height and his reach to the advantage he should. He struggled with guys like Denis Shafikov, Javier Fortuna. I think Garcia knocks Easter out somewhere around the 7th or 8th round. What do you think?
That's originally what I was thinking too, Mike. But I think now, just as the fight gets close, I'm thinking that Easter is going to go the distance, but I think Garcia still wins. No, Easter does not use his height and reach. He's not that type of a fighter. He's more of, when he fights well, he's more of a Paul Williams type of a fighter, a guy who, he's got the height and the reach, and it makes him sort of difficult as a force coming at you, but he doesn't, use those attributes to keep you away from him and fight at a distance. He gets on top of you and throws a lot of punches. When he fought Argis Mendez and knocked him out, he fought like a lightweight Paul Williams, and I was extremely impressed. He showed volume punching and power there, and Mendez has actually been fighting well since. But on the other hand, Easter has not fought well since that fight. I do think the fights that they talked about, we all saw, his close decisions. I do think he edged all of those out. I mean, I think those were all legitimate wins. They were a few of them were very close. The Fortuna, Comey, Shafikov. I thought Easter did pull all those out, but he just hasn't looked good. He's not what I thought he was going to be, I'll say that. And he really has been disappointing in his last few fights. I guess he's working with Kevin Cunningham now, and they realize that something's got to be done to kind of reverse course. And I'm thinking maybe they do enough with him here. He seems to be a tough guy for looking at his fights. He's definitely shows some heart in there, and he's in there fighting. And I think maybe, with his height, that's enough for him to get the distance with Mikey Garcia, who's an excellent fighter, definitely one of the best fighters in boxing. And he dropped Lipinets, so he carries some power still. and that was an excellent performance against Lipinets. But now I was originally thinking he'd probably stop Easter because Easter hasn't looked good. But as the fight gets upon us, now I think that Easter might have enough to go the distance with him. But I'm looking at a Garcia win, and we're just looking to see if we see something from Easter like we did when he was coming up and when he fought Mendez. Because one thing that's good about this fight, I mean, these are legit top 5 lightweights. You know, if you're rating 8 divisions, even instead of 17, these are top guys, and I like that kind of a fight. I'm really hoping that one thing we do get out of this is, you know, we had 2 top cruiserweight guys fighting last week in Garcia and Usyk. I think the fight, in my opinion, was kind of a disappointment. I'm hoping that we don't get that here. I'm hoping whatever happens here that we get treated to a really good fight between Garcia and Easter on Saturday. But Easter is a big underdog, so I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
All right, Jeremiah, do you see any scenario where Robert Easter can pull this out?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's boxing. I never want to say never. I mean, you know, Easter isn't a bad puncher, and I mean, I've seen Garcia dropped. I mean, I remember he got hit the deck against Roman Martinez, but the skill gap is just too big there. I mean, Easter he had good potential. He just hasn't lived up to it. I mean, I like his size. He's got a good blend of speed and pop and, work rate. I mean, you don't see a lot of guys like that at 135, but when it comes to really Garcia's bread and butter, it's the 1-2. I mean, he's so sharp. He's so good technically that you've got to either outbox him or you've got to overwhelm him with work rate. Like Orlando Salido was, after he got dropped a number of times early in the fight, he started to come back pretty well, actually, and he was throwing a lot of shots, and he clipped Garcia a few times. It didn't hurt him or anything, but that's sort of how I see, how you beat Garcia is, again, you either overwhelm him or you can outbox him somehow. Because if you stand in the center of the ring and you try to, match wits with him, he's just going to bang you with a jab and he's going to clip you with a right hand at one point, and it's going to hurt. And you see, even at 140 pounds, he has enough pop to get these guys respect. I mean, Adrian Broner has a good chin. We got to give him that. And you could tell that he didn't really want to taste Garcia's power. That's why he covered up a lot on the ropes and just kind of hung out. Garcia's power prevented him from getting off his own offense. So, I think the same thing is going to happen with Easter, where, generally he likes to throw his, a lot of punches, and it's just not going to happen. Garcia is just going to be pinpoint with his accuracy. He's going to bang in the right hands. Easter hasn't shown real good defense up until this point. He's just outmatched here. But I do think Easter so far has been tough enough to last a distance with some good fighters. Of course, none of them who hit as hard as Mikey Garcia. So I do lean towards the prospect of Easter going 12 rounds and losing a wide decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if a stoppage happened. But I'm going to predict Garcia, a big unanimous decision.
All right, so John, Tyson Fury said he'd like to fight Deontay Wilder in the U.S.
I actually did not see that, but
I didn't either, because it just came across on Boxing News 24. But Tyson Fury says he'd fight Deontay Wilder in the U.S. He says he's disappointed that Joshua is avoiding a unification fight and thinks he would love to come to the United States and fight Joshua on his home soil.
I wonder if he's serious. If he's serious, there could be worse things in the world.
Well, yeah, it's the heavyweight division. I mean, hell, I'll take Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder any day. I mean, it's better than watching Tyson Fury fight Francisco Pianetta.
Yeah, Pianetta.
But that is better than watching him fight that little 5'9" heavyweight that he fought last time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And
I've seen Pianetta before, and he's not like atrocious like that other guy was, but it's still going to be boring.
Well, he got knocked out by Kevin Johnson within the last year, so.
I said he wasn't absolutely pathetic, John. That's not a ringing endorsement. That just means he's better than the little jockey that Tyson Fury fought last time.
We're not looking forward to Fury Pianetta.
No, the guy that Fury beat was actually the second best cruiserweight in Albania. I mean, that tells you all you need to know.
That means he's one of the two best in Albania, though.
Yeah, and he was probably the only two.
And the other thing is, I think Pianetta is actually at least a heavyweight.
That's true.
Like
he is a heavyweight.
220. And Kevin Johnson was good in like 2008. I mean, of course, Pianetta lost him in 2017, but
I did have hope for him. I did have hope for him at one time.
Well, how about this?
Pianetta, that was a long time ago.
Pianetta got knocked out by Ruslan Chagayev, which in 2005 would have been fine, but in 2015, it's just embarrassing.
Yeah,
and
so
he got knocked out by Klitschko, too. But wait a second, guys, because by looking at his record, I found out something that makes him legit. In 2012, back-to-back fights, he won unanimous decisions against Oliver McCall and Francois Botha.
That's pretty neat that he's got both and McCall on his record. He's fighting in 2018.
No, it wasn't 2008. It was 2012 when he fought him. But I mean, once again, if he'd have fought all these people like 2 decades ago, this would be a solid fucking career. But and the fact that it took a unanimous decision to beat a 55-year-old Botha and a 53-year-old McCall gives me cause for concern when he fights Tyson Fury. But he's still better than that last guy.
And it's actually, and we can actually safely say he is not as good as Alfredo Evangelista.
Really? I don't know. Alfredo Evangelista was pretty bad, too.
But he's not as bad as this guy.
Did Evangelista upset Greg Page? He upset somebody. I don't remember who it was, though.
Yeah, he did upset somebody. I know what you're talking about. It wasn't Page beat him, but he
Pablo
did upset
Baez,
somebody.
who we have not brought up in like a month.
Bob Day did put up the fight poster of Hearns Baez. I like that.
Yeah, well, that was the super whatever the hell it was, Super Star Wars thing or something.
From the Astrodome. Yeah.
He upset somebody. Let's look at his little thing, because I used to like Evangelista because I like bad white heavyweights. He fought Terry Daniels in 1981. He lost to Greg Page by a second round knockout, so it wasn't Greg Page. He lost to Leon Spinks. I would just
you're right.
Know,
I think he did.
Did he have pictures, you think? I mean, this is a dude that lost to Lorenzo Zanon.
Did he lose to Zanon?
Yeah, he lost to Zanon in a 12-round decision. He did knock out Lucian Rodriguez in 2.
Okay.
But when I look at this, he actually this is what's really messed up. I never knew this. But, he fought Ali for the title in, like, June of 77. 2 months before that, he lost to Zanon on an 8-round decision, and his next fight was a title fight against Muhammad Ali.
That's when Ali was picking some spots or some easy ones there.
Oh, yeah. He did beat Jean-Pierre Koopman, knocked him out in the first round, but that was, like, 1977. I thought he had a win against somebody that surprised everybody, but I'm not seeing it right now. He did beat Bob Stallings.
That one didn't qualify.
No, he lost to Lucian Rodriguez. He split fights. He beat Ronaldo Snipes. There it is.
That was the one you're thinking of. Yep.
We need to have Ronaldo Snipes on the show and find out what the hell happened there.
Yeah, what happened that night?
Yeah. But he lost a split decision at Richfield, Ohio. That's Don King's home territory. Alfredo Evangelista had some pictures of some serious shit with Don King. I'll guarantee you that.
He fought Holmes, too, didn't he?
Yeah, he fought Holmes for the title. He fought Ali for the title. He got all these huge fights, made all kind of money, and he just beat Ronaldo Snipes. He was like 1-10 against guys that mattered.
Except those Europeans he was beating. They had their own little circuit over there.
Yeah, they did. It was Lucian. And that was the thing. He fought Lucian Rodriguez like 3 times, lost 2 out of 3. He lost 2 or 3 times to Lorenzo Zanon. So, yeah, Alfredo struggled. John, any final words or news you want to discuss before we wrap it up?
Well, one thing that you guys remind me, actually, in a way, we agree when we're talking about the Usyk situation about who he's going to fight. I wanted to point out that this is the problem when fights are delayed, like the additional problem. In other words, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they were going to go with the fans' wishes. We had the 1 and 2 heavyweights, Wilder and Joshua, and they were going to fight this fall. Okay, then you get that fight out of the way, and then it opens it up for fighting Usyk, or a Fury finally looks decent against somebody with a pulse. Fury. In other words, when you delay Wilder Joshua, then other fights are not going to happen, and this is how we end up going too long, and then a lot of fights never happen. So it's kind of the additional damage you get from fights getting held up and delayed among the top guys. So that's I think that's also something to keep in mind. The problem when we're not getting the fights we need to have.
All right, Jeremiah.
Yep. So my only complaint, actually, I was going to talk about Tony Bellew versus Usyk, but my complaint, and this is what the Usyk fight highlighted, actually, was that when you look at the world boxing assholes and their saturation of trinkets in the market, it should appall the average fan that the WBA has 4 quote unquote world champions in the cruiserweight division. We just watched a guy beat all contenders in a big tournament, set up with a Muhammad Ali trophy, and I think he just got a payday of like $25 million. To the WBA, he is their champion, but the fact that they've got 3 other guys under him who also lay claim to some sort of bogus bullshit championship, again, it should appall people. I mean, why is this happening? Look, they got Denis Lebedev as a champion in recess. Okay, they stripped him so Gassiev could be their man in this tournament, and they could be on a bigger stage and highlight that crap to the rest of the world. And then they've got an interim champion, some guy from Armenia named Arsen Goulamarian, and then recently they let oh damn it, what is his name here? What's the guy from Kazakhstan that had previously fought for their regular championship? Bernard Hopkins schooled him. Yes, Beibut Shumanov. Okay, Beibut Shumanov. They let him after what was it, 2 years off. They let him come back and fight some no-hoper for a regular championship. So now they have 4 in that division alone. It's atrocious. Gilberto Mendoza Jr. should be mocked every day until he shapes up and ships off.
All right, guys. On that note, that is basically
on that rant.
The Shape Boxing's in today.
Yep.
Guys, if you get a chance, you're listening to this, you could check out the Monday version of Survive in Advance with me and Steve Risley. We actually had Thomas Triber, ring announcer, on. Great interview. It was a lot of fun. And also, Thomas will be with us, I think, the week of August the 18th. That's Sunday night. He wants to come on and do a show before he goes to the Tyson Fury card. And then he'll be back the week after to talk Tyson Fury also, so check us out there. I want to remind everybody, you can now hear us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Jeremiah Preisser, John Einreinhofer, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.